Hi, this is John Chen, and I am a member of something called the Success Club. And inside of there, somebody asked about advice on writing a book. And I said that I had written two books, and I gave one or two tips, and they said they wanted more. So one of them, of course, is here with us is Mary Mack. Mary, why don't you go ahead and take a moment and just say hello? There we go. Hold on, let me get you unmuted. Say hello one more time, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
Excellent. And
I'm from Australia.
where you're from Australia, correct?
That's correct, Sydney.
Sydney. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. And so she has a big storm, of course, moving in, so she may get a little bit of interference. And then Beverly is the other person that hopefully she's going to join us here in just a second. So with that, I just want to do a little opening on like how did I write two of my books. So this is basically my last 3 years in 2 minutes, and the inside of this story is how I wrote two books. So my name is John Chen. I'm the author of Engaging Virtual Meetings. How did I get here? Well, I had started in team building. So something known as geocaching is a high-tech scavenger hunt. I used to do 140 events around the world teaching team and leadership skills by geocaching. So I've been to a lot of amazing places, including, let's see, the UK, Australia, and Taiwan as some of the places that I've done team building. And then, of course, this thing came around, and it kind of messed up my business. So what happened here is that I had 15 canceled events in March of 2020. So when faced with uncertainty, one of my strategies is to look at the past. So for those who know what this is Prodigy. This is the first virtual meeting space online that was graphical over 35 years ago before America Online. That means that I was on it, meaning that I was there. I was on virtual meetings a long time ago. In addition to that, here's the first book that I wrote. And I hope you asked the question, Mary, about how I got to write this book. But I wrote this in 2011 called 50 Digital Team Building Games. So for decades, I've been trying for years to tell people that we could do this. We could do meaningful work on virtual. You could save the travel and expenses, and that you could have dinner with your family and friends at the end of the day. But people before March of 2020 said, that's a great idea, John, but you need to fly to Orlando. So I don't make vaccines, but I do know how to make your virtual meeting better. So I put a course up called Virtual Team Building on a website called Eventbrite, and over 5,000 people took the class in 2020. So my publisher came back and said, hey, John, do you want to write your second book? And I said, sure. And in the cruelest joke I think my publisher played on me, they said, John, we have no idea how long this coronavirus thing is going to last, so will you please rush the book? Right? So that's the funny part because, well, one of my friends, a family of four, went to Alaska last week, and all four of them came home with corona. So it's still here, and I wrote this book in 9 weeks. 60,000 words in 9 weeks. It came out, it was the #1 Amazon hot new release when it came out in October 2020. And so now I changed my entire business within a year. And so now people invest in me to design, produce, speak at, and MC virtual meetings. Here's some fun people I've gotten to work with. Jay Badasinga, who's the author of The Walking Dead. This is Patrick Lencioni, author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and published he sold 6 million books. This is Damon John, you know, the shark, who after he sold his billion-dollar company, clothing company. And this is Elizabeth Gilbert, who had one of the top keynotes in the pandemic and wrote a little book called Eat, Pray, Love that sold 16 million books. And then Julia Roberts played her in a movie of the same name. By the way, there's less than 100 authors a year that sell 1 million books or more. So if you have dreams of becoming that best-selling author, I'll tell you that if you get to 1 million, you're like literally, you're 1 in 100 that year, and you're 100 out of 6 billion people who have gotten to that. So here's the last piece I want to share with you. You know, if you, as an author, if you ever speak to your group, here's the #1 tip I can give you for when you speak either on virtual or in person. That's right. Your #1 tip is stand up. You can be in the top 20% of all speakers if you just stand up while you present or read a part of your book, because you gain a huge physiological advantage, as well as you feel better and they're going to feel better. So here's what I also did in my last 3 years of the pandemic is that, yeah, I built a green screen that was big enough to walk around. Right. So that's how I'm doing some of these really amazing tricks. And this is what's in front of me every single day. Right. And so I use this system to author a book as well as, present virtually around the world. So that's my short story, how I got to write a book. Okay, Mary, let's bring Mary in with the first question of the day.
Writing process, especially given that you had to do it in a short space of time.
So what's the question again, Mary?
Sorry, what is your writing process?
Oh, what is my writing process? This is a great one. So, Mary, one of the stories I need to share with you is that I failed 4 times writing a book in the 10 years previous to that. I had tried 4 times and had failed. So that was one of the keys. And so my writing process. So when I got my first book, I finally got an advance. So it went like this. I spoke at a conference, and I had a hot new topic, and somebody at the end of that session. Okay, well, here, let me see if I finish the rest of the story. Okay, so this is a conference that I had spoken at before, but I forgot to apply to speak. So then what I did was I called the conference organizer because I knew her, and that she actually had a speaker just canceled on her. So there was an opportunity, and she goes, "Did you want to speak?" Because it's so funny that you asked. So I got into this conference when I wasn't supposed to, and then what else happened is that she gave me any pick a spot. So I picked the most popular, biggest time to speak, and then I had a topic and then advertised it. So I had a full room, right? The most that you could get inside this room. And at the end of that talk, someone came up to me. He's a publisher, and he said, "Hey, that was a great talk. Would you like to write a book about it?" And it turned out this guy is a publisher from John Wiley and Sons. So that started my writing part, is that I took an advance for the book. And that was the key part of the process, is that when I tried to write a book on my own, oftentimes I would quit or failed. But now I took somebody else's money. I'm like, I can't go back. So I got to finish this book. So here was the most important part of the process. I had to map out all the days between the beginning and the deadline. They gave me 6 months. And I said I had probably about 42 full writing days between the now and the end. And so that meant there was 50 digital team building games. That mean I had to write like 1.2 initiatives per writing day. Sounds easy. But what happened, Mary, is that after the first month, is that I've discovered I was so far behind schedule that I was not going to ever finish the book. So in that writing process, one thing is make a plan, measure it, and then the second part is that if you are not on plan, then you need to change things. So in that month, what I made the decision is that I became the most introverted, extroverted person you know. I stopped going out to events. I stopped going out to other places. I spent all my time writing. All right. And what was great about it, Mary, was that in that process, I actually finished in 5 months instead of 6. I was able to finish 1 month early after being way behind by changing my behaviors and getting that into the writing process. That's a great question. Let me see. I got Beverly here. She's trying to get in. So let me see if I can get her in a different way. Go ahead and ask me the next question, or let me know if you have any other questions around there. Oh, let me unmute you here too. There we go. Go ahead, Mary.
I'm hoping you can hear me because you're still with us. My other question is, how did you stay disciplined? Did you have any writer's block?
So in the discipline, did I have writer's block? That's a good one. So in writer's block, well, now you probably have probably the best tool ever. If anybody here has writer's block, just go to ChatGPT or any of these AI derivatives and plug in the thing that you're working on, and it will spit out something that's actually pretty decent. So that's one part. But for me, I didn't have that. So in writer's block, if you get blocked, one of the things to do is Simon Sinek actually said this today. He said take a break, right? That's one of the best things that you can do is just take a break. And with that, what you do is that you can change what's going on. You can get out of that, by taking just walking away from it. That's really one way. Another way that I did is I worked because I had 50 different things that I could work on. What I did was I stopped working on that initiative and I go work on something else that I can make some progress on. So writing is all about momentum. Once you get momentum, right, you'll find that there are times when I actually could write 3, 4, or 5 of those initiatives in a single day when I was only scheduled to write one. And then there's other days when I got half of one done, or I got interrupted and I got nothing done. And so you really need to look for those streaks about when can you write and be really, really productive. Okay, so I'm going to look for Beverly on any of the other channels here. I don't see her yet, but we'll try and get her in one way or the other. Let's see. Oh, I do have a link here. Let me give her the Zoom ID and see if we can get her in. 923 88985. Okay. All right. I give Beverly the other message. Okay. So, Mary, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
Hey, what's your next question?
It was going to be, where are we? So clearly you spent a number of hours and depended how you felt and the momentum that you had. How did you structure the content, or did your publisher give you a template?
Excellent. How did I structure the content? Okay. It's great too. And Mary, your storm is getting a little worse and better, so hopefully we'll try and get it. But I did get it. So how do you structure the content? Well, in the first book, it was easy because it was 50 digital team building games. And actually, let me bring this book out. I have it here, right? So this is the first book. And while, one, it's 50 digital team building games. So there's a template kind of like that I built for this, which is like you describe what the goal of the game is, right? The purpose for it. Now, here's how you run it. Here's like some variations. Here's like some things that you need. But something that I thought was so important in this particular book was that there is a guide. So this guide, if you can kind of see this here, I'm going to spotlight myself back in here. Right? This said all the different purposes and then where to go with it. So let me kind of read some of these goals or titles. The goals were icebreakers, communications or games for speakers, trust, improving performance, problem solving, creativity and innovation, collaboration, epic team building, and closers. So, Mary, there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There were 9 different categories. So that meant there were like 5 to 7 team building initiatives or team building games in each section. And so there was a theme built around it. Now, in my second book, one of the great parts is that when you do work with a publisher, let's say if you get a paid publisher like John Wiley and Sons, one is that they give you an editor and then they have a graphic artist. And so like all these graphics and other things are created by them. They actually go in and typeset this whole thing for publishing. They actually do all the copyright checks and make sure that you didn't have something where somebody's going to try and sue you later. So that's some of the value in working with a publisher. And of course, you pay for that eventually. But one thing that was super important with this book, that my publisher, this book was started out called Virtual Team Building. And I had just produced a conference for Microsoft in April of 2020. So they had this was the first time they had ever taken this in-person conference, which was on a really important topic. It was compensation. It's how much they pay all the employees at Microsoft. And they had to shift to virtual because they didn't have a choice. And they have to make these decisions, otherwise they don't know what to pay people, and there's going to be a lot of angry people. So I helped them design this conference, and I was explaining how we made it. It actually ran around the world, Mary. It ran in the America, then it ran in Asia, and then it ran in Europe, right, based in the UK. And so we had actually recorded the items, and then a live crew would rebroadcast, but then facilitate, and then send it over to EMEA with notes, and then they would do the same thing, and we would do it for like I think it was like 3 or 4 days straight. And after telling him this story, why this is so important is we suddenly realized maybe 10% or 20% of the world is interested in virtual team building. But everyone in the world now was interested in engaging virtual meetings. So even though he had spent a bunch of money on this art, we already had covers. I could show you past covers of a book that said virtual team building. He had to rewrite the whole thing and do it all over again and pay extra money for it because he thought that it would sell more books. And so, that's the structure. The second thing that we learned about this book, we put 80% of the value in the book in the first 3 chapters. Because books are kind of like YouTube videos. Sometimes people only read like the first 1 or 2 or 3 chapters, even if they want to read it all, right? Very few people get to the end, but most people will read the first sections, right, to figure out the book. So we rewrote the book and we put one of the most important chapters is the third chapter, right? The first chapter and the second chapter gave the structure that we use, but the third chapter was a whole chapter on something we called psychological safety. Psychological safety. Let's see. So, Mary, do you have any idea what psychological safety is?
I'm assuming it may be being mindful of other people that are involved in the meeting
Yes.
and behaving accordingly and being sensitive to the whole group.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, Mary, yeah. So that psychological safety is so important. It's defined as you feel safe to take a risk in a virtual meeting. And so we wrote about it. It was in the appendix, like in the back. And we moved it all the way to the third chapter because this is the thing that helps get cameras turned on. This psychological safety is the thing that will get people to answer questions when you're on virtual, right? So many people ask questions on virtual and nobody answers. But if you have psychological safety, then you usually have a conversation and you have something that's very, very engaging. So that was really one of the keys. Oh my gosh, Beverly made it in. Let's welcome Beverly into the fray here. Let's welcome Beverly. All right. Beverly, this is John. Can you hear me? All right, let's bring in Beverly. There you go. These are the two people that ask me questions around here. Mary's having a little camera trouble here. Mary, why don't we go ahead and we're going to turn off your camera for a second. Is that okay? Yeah, go ahead and you can do that, and we'll have Beverly here. Okay, so welcome, Beverly. Take a moment to unmute. Let's see if your mic is working, and say hello.
Hello,
Hello, Beverly. Okay, Beverly, where are you calling in from?
United Kingdom.
The United Kingdom. Excellent. So, again, we have Mary from Australia. She's in Sydney, and you are from the UK. So,
Yes.
what we've done so far is she asked, I gave an overview of like the book writing process that I've written 2 books, and she asked about the process and what to do about writer's block. So, I'll give you the next question, Beverly. What's the next question you'd like to ask me about writing a book?
Right. Thank you so very much for the opportunity.
Ah,
And, it's a hassle, but thank goodness I was watching. So, yeah. So, my question is, in order for you to have the most attractive book title, what are your tips, please?
oh, attractive book title. Well,
Mm-hmm.
attractive book title is really, really important because it is one of the first things. It's much like news and ads, right? The first you have basically about 7 words to get somebody to click on something. YouTube is the same way. You have 2 to 7 words to get somebody
Mhm.
to click the video and watch it. And your book is exactly the same way. So I was
Mhm.
just telling Mary, here, I'll retell this part of the story, that the title of this book actually was something else. It was virtual team building. And in fact, now, since we're online, I want to just show you the cover of this book. So give me 1 second while I bring it up. And because this book was a completely different, and we retitled the book in the process, Beverly. And let me tell you, I have a New York publisher. He's one of those kind of people who doesn't like to go backwards. And
Mm.
and so he he changed his mind, which means that he had to pay a bunch of extra money to change the name of the book. So here, watch this. Let's see if I can do this correctly today. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, watch this. Yeah. Okay, see this book? This is one of the covers for the book. It was called Virtual Team Building. That's cover 2. This is cover 3. Cover 4. I think all I got is these 3. Okay. Anyways, I just wanted to show you those because one of the keys here is that it was called Virtual Team Building at the beginning. And this publisher already had a success. Like he had a success with another author who's one of my good friends, Aaron Scannell, and he had it was called the Big Book of Team Building, and it had like I think 50 or more different team building initiatives, and it turned into a series. You're right, the
Mhm.
second big book, another big book of team building. So those are all the things that happen inside of there. Now, so the name is super important, and it has to be relative to what you want. And why I changed the name of the book from virtual team building to engaging virtual meetings is because after I had worked on a conference, we discovered that maybe 10 to 20% of the world was really going to be concerned about virtual team building. But
Mm.
but now after March of 2020, every single person had to be worried about having engaging virtual meetings. So he was bought in, even though it cost him more resources of time and money, to changing this book title, and it probably helped. I think I reached the goal for this book in terms of how many sold even faster than my last book because this title is much more universal, right? Beverly, there's a study that was done last week that my friend shared with me, and it did a poll of 1,000 people, just regular people. They said, how many of you have been on at least one virtual meeting in the last week? It was 94.7%. Right? So that's how that important virtual meetings are, and therefore, people now too. Like the biggest problems you hear in virtual meetings are engagement and cameras off and people not answering questions. So, for instance, let's take you, Beverly. What do you want to write your book about? What's your topic?
Right. So my book is all about what can I say? I'm trying to work that one out still. So basically it's for each and everybody that had gone into school, yeah, and failed, and they're beating themselves around because they have failed. So it's not what the report told you, it's what the experience you have in order to move on with life.
Oh, and where did the idea for this book come from?
um my experience,
Oh,
my story, yeah.
can you say more about it?
Okay, so basically, yes. I went into school, and unfortunately, I didn't make it because of one or two things, that I had to encounter in my journey. But one thing that I always used to tell me is that no matter what everybody was saying, you had, because you've got your parents that are telling you that this is what I want you to do. If you don't do it, then you're not good enough. So their report or whatever whatsoever they'll keep on saying I'll do the opposite, but in a respectful kind of a way, So I did not take a no as an answer. And I had to self-educate myself and get to where I am. And I'm grateful that now I have found to me, because I might have took a direction um that might have led me astray, but I have found to me now, and I'm an upcoming author, and on top of that, I'm gonna make a whole impact and a difference to many that today are sitting scratching their head, have got no hope and direction because of the name called they have failed school. So there is more than failing. It's not failing that can, the what is this, what's the word or proper word to use? So it's not failing to me is, I would say, you have won a lottery if you have failed, because you have got the experience, and experience nowadays is what's needed, because it's power that have grown through the inside of you that is taking you to the next level. So it's not the report that defines the tomorrow, it's the actions you do, and we keep on learning until the day we die. Thank you.
Oh, there's another one there too. Okay, so one of the things for all those who are listening out here too, I mean, you can chat some suggested book titles. These are the ones that I got in listening to you, right? I thought a very compelling title is "I Have Found Me Now, and You Can Too."
Mm-hmm.
So that's like kind of the first one. I think you could also take the second one. I'm not sure if it's been done yet. Failure is winning the lottery.
Say what?
Failure is
Mhm.
winning the lottery. Well, then look,
Like
look
that.
at the reaction,
I
right?
like
Yeah. See, so here's what I've told people too, right? As an author, your emotions are your GPS, right? Meaning your
Yeah.
guidance system. If you here's this great quote that I got from the National Speakers Association this year, Beverly, and
Mm.
the quote is, "Goosebumps don't lie."
Yeah.
So, like when you cheered, like failure is winning the lottery, and you cheer,
Wow.
that it says it's pushing the button in you that is really important. And that's a compelling title because listen to it. Failure is winning the lottery. You go like, wait a minute, that's not a normal saying I would say. So now I'm interested. Right now I want to read. I'm like, how is failure like winning the lottery? And then if you start reading it and you get into it and you really like you share your story and you give that viewpoint that most of us beat ourselves up when we fail, right?
Mm.
But
Mm.
imagine that,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Right, but imagine if we failed and I felt like I won the lottery. Let me tell you, here's my failure story, Beverly. Right, I was sharing my studio. This is my studio here. This is what
Mhm.
I sit in front of every day. What most people don't know, Beverly, is that this is the result of thousands of failures in the last
Mhm.
3 years. Equipment that doesn't work, things that don't do what they say are going to do. I got a whole room full of Amazon stuff I bought that didn't work the way it's supposed to work, right? And but this is the result of it, right? I failed
Mm.
faster than anybody, right? In Corona time, and Beverly, I will admit that I felt like I won the lottery. My business was better in coronavirus, not worse. And most people can't say that. Most people
Uh-huh.
can't say that. Let's check in with Mary. Hey, Mary. Let's make sure that the storm didn't get her. Hi, Mary. This is John. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There
Oops,
you go.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Let's see if the picture comes back.
I hope you've been enjoying this conversation with Beverly. Let's let you
It's
ask.
great, actually.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's very helpful, and some good questions and insight into life's journey is not always black and white, and we all have a different path and a different experience. And I think by sharing it, we can give people hope and a different perspective.
Yes. What is your next question, Mary?
Okay, my next question was, since you were talking about technology as well, do you have particular software that you prefer to use for your writing?
Good question, Mary. So, what software do I use? Well, I was if I worked at Microsoft for over 10 years, right? Or for 10 years. And I shipped 10 products and I got 2 US patents. That's what these little things are here. These are awards that you get once you get a patent, Mary. And so I use Microsoft Word. And Microsoft Word is a very powerful tool, especially if you use the chaptering or what is it? It's called like the table of contents feature. Like it'll write if you use the correct headings, like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, and title. It will create a table of contents automatically for your book. And then you can also do footnotes. Like you need to do footnotes if you quote somebody else because you can't steal the material. You have to give them credit for it. So you can create those footnotes, and then the people at Wiley were able to easily take what I gave them and change it so they could typeset it for all the printing. So they spent a lot less time because I was using an advanced tool and using most of the features of Word. So a Word document is pretty easy to give to almost any printer and give it out. Other tools that I use were graphics, Mary. Sometimes there are simple tools as Paint. Another one I use is something called GIMP, G-I-M-P, which is a GNU's image processing program. And it's a free editor that's as powerful as Adobe Photoshop. And so for all you authors out there too, there are lots of free tools, right? Which is like royalty-free pictures. Other tools. There are headline generators like to help create headlines for books and test them. And so I use something called Monsters Insight Headline Analyzer, and it will help you give suggestions to write something and give you a rating from 0 to 100, which is how likely people are to click on it. And it's been developed using because they help put ads out. That's what that company does. And they have analysis on a huge amount of data of what people actually click on. Like if you use the word fantastic, that is way better than working like, it's good. Right? So more people click on it. And so those are the kind of things that you can do. Other tools I think that I used along with it, I was using grammar checkers, and I was using one great feature. This is a great piece, Mary. If you use Word with a OneDrive is Microsoft's shared drive technology, like Google Drive. You can share your document with other people, and they can review while you're editing. So simultaneously, 10, 20, up to 100 people can be working on your document at the same time. So you could be writing over here, and you could be editing and having people give you comments back here so that you can be writing in a much faster process. And the comments are like, this is confusing, or I love this, or, whatever it is. So those are some of the features inside the technology that I think that you should really use. Let's go to Beverly. Beverly, you get the next question.
My question is, the excitement in my book already. What do you reckon is how do you, by writing the book, should it be a big book? Should it be a smaller book? How do you distinguish between making it smaller and bigger? Which one sells better? Thank you.
Big or small and sells better. And that reminds me too, then, Beverly, I'm going to give you some of my best book advice after this. Big or small doesn't really matter in some ways, because if you sell one copy of it, right, that's one copy. Now, as a business person, what I can also tell you though is a book is the thickest business card you can give somebody. Right? So you give this to somebody, and like this is like not only has your contact info, it's telling your story, right? It's giving value to them, and quite often if they find something like that, then they want to hire you. Like I want to hire Beverly to share her story with the rest of my group, or I want Beverly to lead a workshop, or whatever it is. So this is the best, and here's the best part about it too. If you give 10 of these to a client, they feel a really difficult time in throwing away 9 copies. So they'll give it to somebody else. And also what I've discovered, if you can go and you can actually find my book now on the used market. And so people, even if they don't want it and they give it to another seller, that means it's out there. Someone else is going to buy it. so that so again, people have a hard time throwing books away because they're they perceive value. So what they do is that a book actually has more value through its time. So big or small, I mean, we know some very small books. One of them actually, Ken Blanchard wrote a very small book called 1 Minute Manager, and it got translated. It easily sold over 1 million, probably in the 6-7 million range, and it was translated into every single language on the planet, and it was thin because it was to the point. So there's that. My book is 60,000 words, Beverly. So there is some value in the heft. Like people just pick up the book and like, oh, it's heavy, right? And then there's the value of actually reading the book. So small or big is really up to you, and it's about how you use the format. And there's some books, right? My friend publishes a book, and it's empty. It has this really crafty title, like, the best way to get stuff done. And then you open it and it's blank. Because you need to write it and figure it out for yourself. So, again, and that book is done. You figure out the cover and you print it and it's done. So there are all kinds of concepts for books. And I don't know if there are statistics about which sells better. But I do want to share this now. So let's see if Mary... Oh, good. Okay, so Mary's here. But Mary can listen to this. The most important thing about a book for all the authors who are listening out here is that writing the book is 20% of the problem. The other 80%, Beverly, is selling the book. I'm serious. And having a fancy big name publisher like John Wiley and Sons does not guarantee you that you're going to sell 1 billion books. In fact, I think, most authors will find that I went with a publisher because one thing I knew is that there is a perceived difference between having a big publisher and self-publishing, right? But that difference is kind of disappearing every day. But I'm just saying there is a difference. So I took it and I wanted more validation. Like that was worth it. They also gave me an advance. That was also worth it too. Saying this is a no-lose proposition now. As long as I deliver a book, if it's a flop, I keep the money they gave me, and if it's a winner, then I get more commissions later. Okay. So anyway, so that's why working with a big publisher can work. But 80% of the problem is selling the book, and so that. You need to think about, before even you write a book, I think you should think about how you're going to sell it. And I've sold the majority of my books. I've sold 16 to 17,000 of my first book, and I think I'm currently on 14,000 of my existing book. And by the way, if you can hit 10,000, right, that's a pretty good deal. The average for most authors, right, the average of all authors in America is selling 300 books. 300. So if you can sell anything over 300, you're above average. If you sell 10,000, you're in the top 4 or 5%. Okay? And then if you get to be lucky one day and one hits 1 million, you got to keep writing books because one of them, could go viral. And that's part of the reason for doing it. Now, the second thing I really want to share with you is this. The strategy that I use to sell all the books is I sell a book with every piece of thing that I do. So again, I'm a speaker, I'm a team builder, and now I produce virtual meetings. So if I produce a virtual meeting, let's just give a number like 3,000. If I charge 3,000, the retail value of my book is $30, then I'll give 100 books, right? I'll take a third of my money and give it back to them in books, and I count it as marketing. And so that's when I sold that program, I sold 100 books, and I still get to keep money, right, to keep my business running. But I buy the books in bulk, so I'm getting the author rate. So the perceived value is $3,000, right? But it doesn't cost me that much. And so now that so I have all these books that are out on all these different places, and that was really one of the keys ways. The other ways is, again, sometimes you can speak and you can sell your book in the back of the room. Sometimes you can speak, like I organize a conference every year. And if you get a VIP ticket in that conference, you get a signed book from me, right? And you get the recordings from the conference, right? And you get all this value. And so there's lots of different ways that I package the book. One other really crafty thing that I did is I built a package. So I built, in virtual meetings, we always need something to make virtual meetings better. So I looked through all the swag items that could be possible. And here, hold on a second. I'm going to just bring out this just so you can see it clearly. This is what I developed. When I sell a book, I now have a toolkit and I sell all these items. This is a lens cleaner. This is a mouse pad, right? This is a pen, but it's 6 tools in one that goes on with one of my messages. It says, get productive with virtual tools. There's like a door knocker that says on air and off air. So let's say, Beverly, you have kids, right? You put on air and you teach your kids not to bug you when you're on a virtual meeting or presenting. And then you put it off air and you say, now it's safe for you to come in at any time and say hi to me. So these are all different items that really make virtual meetings better. And that's another way to sell books is to sell a toolkit, right? Because then you're solving a problem. Beverly, does that answer all your questions? Do you have any follow-up questions?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much.
All right, let's go to Mary. Mary, you got another question. Oh, hold on a second. Let me get you unmuted. Now you're clear. Try again.
Oh, good. Um, without being specific to your situation, how does it work with the percentages and the your publishing relationship in terms of you've got the retainer and then afterwards, do you get an annual percentage of the books that are sold, or how does that work?
Okay, relationship with publisher is what I think I got from her. So one is they give you an advance, so they give you half. All right, that's kind of smart, and they don't give you the other half till you finish the book and you deliver the manuscript. Right, so that's one of the keys. The next piece is there is that they usually assign again an editor or someone to you, and then additional people coming in, people like graphics, and then copyright and some other people, and so you have these review cycles. So yeah, so you have a schedule. You have a date, but they kind of work backwards and they give you some other dates. Like they definitely gave me a date. Will you please just give us your first 3 chapters by this date? So they're always trying to hedge their bets in the process by saying, right, if you go to them, Mary, and going, I need 4 more months, right, to deliver you these first 3 chapters, they know that you might not be writing, right? And so they're going to check it. So they want to see your work and they want to work through that because it makes the process easier. And they do things like sometimes, though, the editor's got to come in and saying, something's not working. So you think you wrote it in the right way, but like these editors have published thousands of books. So they'll come back and they're like, something's not hitting here. So they will coach you, though. That's the good part. I mean, they're already invested. They already give you half the money. But they will coach you and say, based on my experience, would you consider doing this, right? Doing that. That's like when we changed the cover was one of them. When we talked about moving psychological safety to the first part of the book, I agreed with them too. That was the nice part. But there are some publisher challenging relationships. I have had some very good friends who are authors who did not like the cover of their book, and their publisher would not change it. So as an author, you do not get necessarily 100% creative control over your stuff. And some of my friends were really unhappy, like they didn't want to publish it. But you're in a contract and it's kind of a little bit too late. It's like you don't have all the control anymore, and they paid you for the not having control. Hopefully you're a good conflict resolution person. I'm a team builder, so that's why I made it easy. Most of the time we agreed. Like if he said something, I was actually already thinking it. That was kind of fun. But sometimes, there's some people we don't get along with. And that's a very possible reality.
Yeah.
And you need to either deal with it or ask for a different editor. And sometimes that is not a choice. Mary, I hope that helps out. Let's go back to Beverly. We got time for about 12 more minutes of questions. Beverly, you got another question for us?
My question is it possible to have 7 titles of book, but none is written?
Yeah. Oh, I was sharing with Mary at the beginning of this call. I failed 4 times in 10 years trying to write a book. So I had at least 4 titles, Beverly, and at the end of 10 years, I had no book.
Wow.
All right, like that's the lottery, right there. Look, we just hit the lottery ticket, right? That failure was a lottery ticket, but that's
Mhm.
kind of the one thing you got to have. Not everybody wants to be an author, but
Mm.
I think you agree, Beverly,
Mm.
that you look at people who are published authors slightly differently than people who never finish their book, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, that's the way the world still works that way. And by the way, physical books made a comeback during the pandemic. 80% of books are still sold in this physical format. Ebooks, which we thought were going to rule the world with a Kindle, is still only 20% of the market.
Mm.
And so, right, this printed item and having the printed and having something tangible, people still universally, most people say they like having a real book. And so I think that that's another key part of it, of having that. So if you got 7 titles and no book, right? One of the things here, Beverly, is commit. And even like, so you asked about big or small books, maybe commit to a small PDF. There's almost no risk in that. So Beverly, like your topic is like tackling failure, right? Let's pretend like that.
Mm.
You could write a short book that says, right, that has the teaser title, right? Like failure failure is the lottery ticket where one number hits, or like a 3 out of 6 hit, right? So you're running a short version of it.
Mhm.
And then you give the book out and you start getting feedback on it. And if you get positive feedback, then start writing the rest of the book. If you get negative feedback on it, then listen to them.
Mm.
Okay? And then change the book. But it's so fun. Like I really think that you could imagine that. Have you ever
I love it.
have you ever seen these cards? These are little, they're called pop cards, right? And when you do is you pop them open. And like this one says here, let me see if I can get the camera to see it. Come on, focus camera. When you were born, God
Yes, I did.
said yes.
Mm.
Right? So imagine in your book that you had 5 of these that were like lottery tickets that when you open them, like you won the lottery, right? It gives you a quote about failure that you're going to keep, right? That's something crafty that you could stick inside your book to really look at it. So here's the other advice that there are 2 ways also to write this book that might make it easier, especially if you're stuck. The first one was given to me by my very good friend Bob Pike, who has published over 35 books. He says, if you know how to write a blog, then write 1 blog post per fixed time. Like, let's just say 1 a week to make it easy.
Mhm.
He says, after a year, you will have an entire book. So you write the blog, right, in the series. You just plan it out saying, I'm just going to write 1 blog post. So you release it and then you get comments on it. And then at the end of that process, you take all 52 or whatever 10 blog posts, mash them together, and now you have a book. And maybe do some final editing. So that's one way. My second way that I really think now, and it's even easier today, is to have a meeting like this. Like, get your best friend, give them the 3 or 5 questions to ask you for this chapter, and you just
Mhm.
tell the stories like you're talking to a friend.
Mm.
And you turn on Zoom or whatever that you have and you transcribe it. Now you've got
Mm.
the whole transcription. And then you just edit it from there. And then hopefully your friend is really cool, like Mary. At the end of it, you let them ask any question that you didn't give them. And
Mm.
sometimes they give you an insight of the book, right? So, like, let's see, Beverly. Here's a great question that maybe you don't have. Beverly, when did you stop looking like failure is failure and start looking at it like a lottery ticket?
When I took no as an answer.
Say more. When did you stop taking no as an answer?
When I was challenged that I can do better than I was doing.
Was that your parent?
Yes.
And do you remember what your parents said? Do you, because I have those same kind of parents.
Yes. So basically, what they said is that you are good for nothing. Nothing good is gonna come out of you.
Ooh, those are some tough words. And so I think what did it trigger something you and Beverly, like I'll show you Kind of like that?
Yes, you
Ah,
did. You did, because one thing of me that I can tell you and shock you literally right now is that from my year one up to year seven, I was an A student in school in class.
oh, really?
Yes, yes, and then yeah, so I reverted back to that. Yes, I was an A student, and I still have my certificate of school. So
Yeah.
I can still do it.
Yeah. So that's great. So, and again, sometimes that's a great chapter right there, right?
Mm,
Use that power of I'll show you, right? Sometimes it's like failure. If you learn how to prove people wrong, right? All you have to
mhm.
do, if you have that right, all I got to tell you, Beverly, like a Beverly, you will never skydive, and then all of a sudden tomorrow, woo, she's jumping out of a plane. And so that would be a great way is to say it's one of those skills to take somebody's words and use it as something powerful as opposed to diminishing,
Mhm.
right? I'm Asian, right? Duh, right? And so people said that I wasn't tall, I wasn't whatever, something like that. I don't know. Let's make up something like that. And
Mhm.
actually, Microsoft kind of gave that back to me. Like I wasn't the most popular kid or anything, but when I got to Microsoft and we started succeeding, it was like Revenge of the Nerds, Beverly. Right, and I showed all the people back at my high school. Right, I grew up in a little town, Stockton, California, and when I came back, right, I was like this big falutin guy from Microsoft, and that was kind of like I'll show you.
Mm.
Right, that was my I'll show you. So anyway, so that's a great concept. That's a great title, and so anyway, so what I'm getting to that, Beverly, write that down. That's a key part in your book, and that's really powerful when you say those parents, like imagine, right, take a moment and imagine your parents, see their faces, and they look at you straight in the eye and they say, you will never amount to nothing, right, to anything. And that's like many people feel that, many people have experienced that. And if you show them how to turn that experience around, instead of like, it hurts when you hear that, right, that's the default reaction. But if you can train yourself to do that, then that's the Beverly method, right? That's the whatever you want to call it, right? That's the lottery ticket, right? If you like your parents start saying that, you just see a lottery ticket on their forehead. Say, thank you for giving me a lottery ticket.
That's it.
And now you can have all these memes, Beverly. Can't you see the internet full of people with a fake lottery ticket on their head? That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
I would buy that. Mary, okay, time for a last question. You got a last question for us? Oh, hold on a sec. Let me get you unmuted. I forgot. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned that you tried 4 previous times to write the books that failed. So, can you tell us what some of the traps are?
Traps. Oh, good one. Okay. Well, the number one trap, procrastination. All right. And here's my best solution, Mary. You're going to love this. Here's my solution now for procrastination. Just put it off. Right? So that's number one. Number two is right. I'm an entrepreneur. So we let work get in the way. There are so many other important things in our lives, right? I am the father of 3 kids. So my kids are always going to trump the book, right? Like I gotta make dinner. Okay, I gotta write 2 chapters. Make dinner. I gotta make dinner right now. I got hungry kids. Right? So so I think those are the traps. So the trap then gets into time management. You can't write a book without making time, and you gotta isolate that time, and you gotta have again what I had to do. Like I turned off my internet to my computer. I would also not keep my phone near me. I would close the doors. Like I would remove as many distractions as possible. It was really great. I would have a humidifier because I have dry skin, so that would be great. I would always put on music, but oftentimes I would put instrumental music, and I would do everything to get myself into state. Writing mate, right? I want to be a writing machine and remove as many distractions. Watch how many things distract you. The worst part is, Oh, the times I had to turn on the internet, I had to research parts of the book by looking for stuff on the internet. And there are so many times I caught myself running off some other thing, like I got to order from something from Amazon, or look at that pretty ad, or oh, hey, it's a cool, sports car, and I'm not writing my book. So you got to watch that and like put a guard at your mind and say, I have this goal, right? I have this goal and I really got to get in mode and I got to, look for how to make smaller goals with it. So let me see. What else is also the killer of the book? Uh, Not the right motivation. And what I mean by that, Mary, again, I kind of told you. One of them was, one of them when in a publisher is, I will personally do more for other people than myself. And so when the publisher paid me, that was what I needed, right? Like, even though I know I personally would have benefited more by writing my own darn book, I didn't get it done until I like obligated myself to somebody else. And so I don't know. So you got to figure out what's your motivation for the book. All of us say perhaps we want to help 1 million people, or I want to change the world, or whatever that is. And the problem is that that doesn't motivate you compared to like making a paycheck and feeding your kids. So you really got to figure out. You got to make it. You got to really commit to the goal. Like, I know that if I write my book, then it'll be one piece in the puzzle for me to achieving this further goal up here, which is I'm an expert in fill in the blank. I'm an expert in lottery tickets. I'm an expert in failure. I'm on the main stage of some stage. I don't know, whatever it is, right? Because the book is really just a means to the end. But it does allow you, the book does one thing, right? I have 14,000 now, and if I include both books, I have 36,000 books running around with my name on it. And now the good news is like, while I don't feel like, I'm a TikTok influencer with 1 billion people, there are 36,000 plus people, because the book has been passed around, who know my name and they know what I do. And for a small business, that's all you need. You actually only need like maybe 20 to 50 great clients if you're a solo business to make a business. And I have an impact on those people's lives every day. So I hope that helps inside of that part. Beverly, you got one more question for me? And then I have a closing piece for y'all.
My final question is, do you have any collaboration kind of engagement, in helping authors?
Oh, interesting. In helping authors, I don't normally do it. I have one of my very good friends, actually 2 or 3 of my very good friends are book specialists, which means that, Beverly, if you had a big fat check, you could pay them, and they do an amazing, 1 to 5 day with you. They help you like get the book out of your head. They structure it, and then they walk you through the process. They also find you a publisher, and and it probably costs 5 or 10 grand, depending on who you are. So that's the challenge. There are people that do that. I do coaching on a one-on-one basis, so I would consider it if I found the right person who I thought had the right book, right? So, because I don't coach a lot of people, and it's not necessarily what I currently do. What are the other processes for a book? There are a lot of other groups of writers groups, and I would join one. That's something else I think that would be great. If you want to be a writer, hang around other writers. And one of the great here, I'll give you this resource here too, National Speakers Association, because usually part of the time, if you have a book, you should probably think about speaking of it, right? And so National Speakers Associations, almost every high-paid speaker has a book, because they know it's part of their strategy. And so you can go to any National Speakers Association's chapter, ask to be a guest at their meeting, and ask who's got a book, and ask advice from them. So one thing I will say about the book, that Beverly and that Mary, I think could benefit this too. A book is a part of your strategy. It's not the end all be all, right? Unless you're a complete author, like if you're an author who can, you sell enough books for everything, then you could do that. But most of us, that books is part of a system. And to me, all right, it's like I have my social media and email down here, then I got a book. here. Then I have all my videos, or like, again, we're live streaming right now. I have a whole channel on YouTube. I got a website, and then eventually it gets into this part, which is that I'm personally working for you, like producing your conference. Imagine, Beverly, that we had a failure is a lottery ticket conference where you had all these speakers who speak about their failure. Actually, Beverly, I do have a resource for you. Look up this resource called Failure Lab. Failure Lab in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And they are the TED Talk of failure, Beverly. They have this really cool format because I spoke at it. You have to tell a story where you failed and you don't tell the end. And then people discuss what they would have done in that part. And then they have to play music to kind of like clear the air for the place for another speaker to come on. And it is one of the most, it's more impactful than TED, right? People love a good train wreck rather than, a sunshine. So that's why failure is such a draw. Anyways, the book is part of a strategy is what I'm trying to tell you. And all of you asked about a system, I think, that goes with it. Everything is branded around my book now. I went so far as that I created the website, engagingvirtualmeetings.com. I have a podcast called the Engaging Virtual Meetings Podcast, right? I have a conference called the Engaging Conference, right? And so, again, I'm just stacking all of my stuff on top of that. And just so that people know, that's what I do, right? I design and produce, speak at, and MC virtual and hybrid meetings. And that's what you need to think about, Beverly. If you get this done right, we would know you as the failure queen, right? Or the lottery ticket queen, or look at it, whatever it is. And I don't know Mary's story yet, right? But whatever Mary's part is, like, if people then finally recognize and tie the two together, then I think you know that you had it well. And your book is one great piece of that puzzle because it can tell your story. People can really read a lot about you, and that helps them make the decision saying, I want to choose Beverly out of all the other people in the world to do X, right? To speak, to, run my workshop, to do whatever. Anyways, Beverly, last piece here. What did you get out of today's program?
Insight, number one, new habits already. I got my title already and I'm excited. It's like it's blowing my mind. It's one thing I love about collaboration is that you will never know and you never can tell who is the next person who's next to you. So thank you very much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Beverly. And let's go to Mary. Mary, what did you get out of today's program?
It was very helpful to see how you could use writing the book to promote yourself, that it's not in isolation, but it's another tool, and different ways that you can do it, even just writing a page at a time, different strategies where it doesn't become overwhelming. Little chunks are more achievable that you can keep building on. So that was very valuable. And just, the reality of sometimes we need the deadline or we need something when you've got other commitments, because life is, does come and impact us, but obviously time management and being forgiving of yourself to also say if you're not having a good day, it's okay to leave it alone and then come back when you're refreshed and go for it again. Thank you so much.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mary. All right. Well, thank you, Mary. All right. And thank you, Beverly. I appreciate both of you for even asking the question. I'm glad we put this together. I'm John Chen. I'm going to give you this last piece here, too. Self-publishing is a route. You can publish your book for as little as $4 a copy if you print a bunch of them. And, the cost goes down if you can print in quality, in quantity, right? So you can actually drive that price down and then you can still get your message out, right? And I'm considering actually self-publishing my next book, right? Because now I've done this twice with a publisher, and I might discover what to do with it. But I want to leave you with this key message here. For all of you who are listening who want to be an author, do it. Do it. If you, one of the things, especially for me, I'm getting in my older years, Here's one great thing about it. You think about legacy work. You know, if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, and let me not wish that on myself, right? But if I did, right, these books will live on and they will be part of my legacy. It's the one part. You know, I had somebody else too. They wrote a book. Like my mom actually wrote a book about our family and she made 5 copies, one for each of my brothers and sisters and me. And she passed away in 2018, and that book is the most precious book I have. It has all of our childhood photos on it. She wrote like what was happening at the time, and I've actually used it back in presentations now that I have that, and I just appreciated that she did that. So think about what your purpose is for the book, right? And like 5 copies was that she fulfilled her purpose in that book. You know, maybe you want to change the world. Maybe you just want something for your kids to understand who you are at this time. It all finishes when you write that book. I'm John Chen, a 2-time author, 50 digital team building games, engaging virtual meetings, and I also want to add this last piece. I want to, and I have set the goal in my lifetime to write a book called The Paper Son about how my grandfather immigrated into this country, defeating, you know, this is a great Beverly. This is a best I'll show you. America passed the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882 to try and reduce the number of Chinese coming in to the railroad jobs. And he found a way to get through this country, and it's called The Paper Son. It is going to be an amazing book, and I hope that next time that I talk to you, that I can tell you that I wrote that book. I'm John Chen, and now this is so you want to write a book. I hope that this gave you at least 1 or 2 new ideas for you to write a book. We'll see you next time.
Don't we start people and keep old people? Show you got heart.